Welcome to the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus 2021 Minority Business Forecast, bringing together South Carolina lawmakers and the state's most prominent professionals and minority business leaders discussing topics and issues vital to competitiveness and overall success. Post, share, and tag someone you know that needs information, resources, and advice, because this is a conversation you won't want to miss. But first, please welcome SCLBC Chair, Representative Patricia M. Hennigan.
Good morning and welcome to the 2021 South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus Minority Business Forecast. This is a new effort by the caucus, but one that we hope will become an annual event. The state of minority small business is very important to members of the caucus and me. This event is designed to bring together South Carolina lawmakers with the state's most prominent minority business leaders for a frank discussion of issues vital to South Carolina minority business competitiveness and overall production. This event will also link DBEs and minority businesses with state agencies and departments with independent contractual opportunities. We have assembled a knowledgeable and exciting group of panel and panelists, all given the charge by me to help South Carolina minority businesses start, expand, and achieve success. I hope you enjoy the forecast. And please remember, you can always call on me and the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus to be on the front lines fighting for you. I welcome you to the 2021 Minority Business Forecast.
Thank you for joining us for the 2021 South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus Minority Business Forecast, bringing together South Carolina lawmakers and the state's most prominent professionals and minority business leaders covering topics and issues vital to competitiveness and overall success. Please tag, post, and share this informative conversation filled with important information, valuable advice, and key resources. Next up, the Small Business Roundtable discussion featuring the following panelists. Representative Reverend Ivory Thigpen was first elected to the South Carolina House of Representatives in 2016 and currently serves on the Judiciary Committee in the House of Representatives and is the incoming chair of the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus. In addition to his legislative priorities, Reverend Thigpen is also a senior pastor and chiropractic physician. Raquel Thomas is a serial entrepreneur and owned 5 successful businesses before her 30th birthday. The author, youth volunteer, and college professor is currently the owner of Golden Restaurant in Columbia, South Carolina, and previously owned a retail clothing shop, DMR Fashion. Dianne Sumpter is the founder and chief executive officer of DESA Incorporated. As an influential business leader, she's concentrated on economic development while leading advocacy efforts for small, women, and minority-owned business enterprises. Lasenta Lewis-Ellis is the president and CEO of LLE Construction Group. Lasenta opened her company in 2011 to provide general contracting, project and construction management, along with several other services, and has expanded her business to the federal marketplace. Courtney Young is the CEO of ForeSight Communications, a global strategic marketing firm headquartered in Columbia, South Carolina. Courtney also serves as the liaison for the Board of Directors for NAMC South Carolina and has leadership roles with the Junior League of Columbia and the Gullah Geechee Consortium. It's bound to be a great conversation, so please welcome the panelists for the local business roundtable discussion. Good afternoon and welcome once again to the 2021 South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus Minority Business Forecast. I'm Trey Taylor, and this is the Small Business Roundtable discussion. Now, Representative Ivory Thigpen is going to join us shortly, but right now, as you heard, we're joined by Raquel Thomas and Courtney Young. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you.
Thank you for having us, Trey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, ladies, let me start by asking what your outlook is for the overall South Carolina business community and specifically minority business owners. Courtney, I'd like to ask you first. Please unmute yourself.
There we go. I think that the overall outlook is is pretty bright. I mean, I think there are lots of opportunities that avail, but more importantly, what I think about business here is there are a ton of training and technical assistance opportunities to prepare small businesses here to do business here and to do business in our neighboring states and throughout the region. So with that, I think that the outlook is strong, and where South Carolina is situated, we have such a great opportunity to be able to connect with our neighbors in Georgia and North Carolina to be able to expand our businesses, and definitely for the minority business community.
Now, Raquel, thank you, Courtney. Raquel, you've owned a few businesses in South Carolina, and of course, you've owned businesses out of the state. What do you think the outlook looks like for South Carolina since you recently, a couple of years ago, moved back to the state?
You know what? I feel just slightly different than Courtney. I think there may be a lot of resources out there, but they're not being communicated effectively. So many small businesses throughout Richland County, throughout South Carolina, aren't aware of the many trainings that may be happening and going on. As a successful business owner here in Columbia, I don't hear about them often. I mean, you have to dig for those resources. So I think one of the things that we have to do a better job of is putting these resources on a platform that's more visible to small business owners, because when you're just starting out or you're in year one and year two, you don't have access to the same thing that business owners like myself and Courtney may have access to. So overall, I think we can do a better job in the state of South Carolina of making the resources more visible for small businesses and most certainly minority businesses.
Yeah. So, Courtney, what do you say to Raquel's point that there are resources available that small minority business owners don't have access to or don't know about?
So I think to the point of knowing about them, I certainly can understand that point. I think that when you are in business, and I mean, I've been in business for 15 years, so I certainly understand and know exactly what it feels like. It wasn't that long ago that I was looking to figure out where people were, where the support was, where that community was to connect with. I think it exists, but I think that there are, so communicating it better, sure, but they exist. I mean, we have, just in the Midlands alone, you have the City of Columbia and their OBO office that is always doing a training. You have the Women's Business Center now at Benedict that's always doing something. So you have engagement opportunities. I think that when you start a business and you go into business, I think that you should get the proper training maybe going in. And I know that sounds, like I've been in business a long time and I just know it, but I think we have to be intentional about how you develop that too. And those resources were not there when I started my business in that way. I mean, the things that you can go to OBO and get technical assistance for, SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, or the Women's Business Center, I think that they have the spaces, and you do have to seek them out. But I think that's in anything. I think it's a mistake to always think it is just going to be sitting right there in front of you, because you have this special thing that you're bringing to the market, and just hanging your shingle isn't enough. Right. So I think you have to put that little effort in there.
I want to go ahead and bring in Dianne Sumpter and Lasenta-Ellis because both of those ladies have such a unique opinion and position in this conversation. Lasenta, before I go to Queen Dianne Sumpter, I want to ask you, being a woman in construction, which is, rare. And I hear some feedback from somebody. I don't know who it is. I think it's from you, Lasenta, because when you went on mute, I heard it again. But what have your specific challenges been?
Can you hear me okay? Okay, yeah. So my challenges, I think, has been mostly because of the industry that I'm in, the things that I've just being able to pivot in construction for me has been more of a challenge. Again, the resources, as Courtney and Raquel has commented, the resources are there because we do have the city, the county, even DOT offering programming for small business.
All right, Ms. Sumpter, can I get you in the conversation, please? Because I know that you often host events, workshops, sessions. I know that you are in the space of really helping smaller minority businesses. Are you having a challenge finding those businesses to get?
Not at all. The key for any business or group is who's your market. Our market is specifically 500,000 and above, frankly, we have a $40 million client. And once we find that that's the size, then what industries are you really working to work with? Now, during the PPP, we've worked with all businesses, nonprofits, churches, etc. My biggest challenge right now is we've already hired additional staff, is having enough skilled staff to work at the level that the business needs. But some of this we'll have to take responsibility. You know, even the scripture tells you study to prove yourself. I have to study at night, and I tell my businesses, I only learned this last night. So they're going to have to dig. And there's probably nothing you need that's not on the internet at this time. Then you at least have a beginning base. And for those, some of us aren't on the internet. Frankly, I tell you about a client last week. I got a call from a legislator, went over, picked up his stuff. When I got into my office, he says, I don't know how to hit push to submit his application. He came over to my office. We showed him. Now, that's not what we can be doing for everyone, but we can with everyone. So when you ask me, is it out there? Yes. And I absolutely agree. The OBO office under Melissa and Teresa and the mayor and council has been phenomenal. Greg Davis and those do far better at training than they do at helping you to get work. I tell them, don't train me no more. Let me go to work so I can make some money. So when you ask me, is it out there? I will tell you somewhere it's out there. And with these Zooms being nationwide, we've had up to 300 and 400 people on our Zoom that we've had with PPP. We've had with how to do your bookkeeping and your legal structure. We're going to do one on internal structure, etc. So you just have to decide. There's so much need, but we need to keep our mind on what the target is. The target is to identify opportunities, identify financing, and strategically grow the business to being one that's a little larger.
Right. That's Dianne Sumpter with DESA. Ladies, I want to ask, what do you believe is needed for minority businesses in South Carolina to continue surviving in the pandemic? And I see Representative Thigpen has joined us. I'm going to get to you in just a moment, Representative Thigpen. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'll ask you, Courtney.
I think that, we've been talking a lot about the trainings and the technical assistance. Use this time and take advantage of those moments. To Ms. Sumpter's point, I think there are more benefits to being a DBE even though you may not be getting immediate contracts, which is obviously the goal. Nobody's in business just to hang out. So you want those things, but take advantage of those trainings. Everything that you're seeing right now, if you were not in a position to get PPP early on because you didn't have your books in order, take advantage of those QuickBooks trainings, take advantage of those internal structures and systems and processes, all of those things. I think take advantage of those things now, because when it's time, as we're moving out of this, you won't have the time to spend on that anymore. You got to get back to work. And most of us have stayed at work. Most of us have been fortunate if we did those things early on. It is about planning. It is about being prepared for that process.
Raquel, what about you? And I'm going to come back to your point a little bit later on that you don't think people are getting what they need, especially based on what Courtney and Ms. Sumpter said. But I want to know, what do you think is needed for minority businesses in South Carolina to continue surviving within this pandemic, which we hope is wrapping up now?
Well, for me, I think it's easy. I talk to business owners all the time, and 99% of them are saying they need access to capital. And before COVID, that has been a major issue in the minority communities. Access to capital has been difficult long before COVID, and it's become even more difficult during COVID. Courtney mentioned people not having their books in order. That's a common thing with small businesses. That's a common thing with minority businesses. So when we talk about training, I agree there's a lot of training out there. However, these individuals, most of them don't even know where to go to look. So I don't know what we have to do, but I think we have to provide training that's more basic, if that makes sense. We have to teach small business owners, if we desire for them to be successful, we have to teach them where to go to find a resource. Where should you be looking? I know you don't have it right now, and it's possibly out there, and a lot of resources are. I think we have more resources now that COVID has hit, but they really don't know where to look. So it's not as easy to jump on Google and Google business resources in Columbia, South Carolina. You're not going to get a lot of results. And then a lot of it is high level. You have a lot of small business owners that don't have any education. So they need more hands-on training. And they need to be taught where to go to find these tools and resources so that they can use them. But hands down, before COVID, during COVID, having access to capital is a major issue for small businesses across the country.
Yeah, thank you. Ms. Sumpter, I want to get you back in here before I bring on Representative Thigpen to Raquel's point. And I know you've been in the game a long time, and you have clients, I'm sure, of all education levels and of various industries. How are you able to kind of meet them where they are? Because to Raquel's point, some people are more educated than other people. So, you have different industries. So you say what? How are you able to meet them where they are?
Okay, we have to meet them where they are. And one of the ways we do that, first thing, I operate the South Carolina Minority Business Development Center that's partially funded by U.S. Department of Commerce. It dictates to us that we have to demonstrate to them that we help businesses get $500 million a year in contracts, similar amount in financing, and that includes bonds and performance and payment bond, or whether we're doing acquisition mergers. So we work with a population, but be mindful that about 5 years ago, a study was done to see where everybody was working so we could see who worked best. And it was decided that the Small Business Development Center was to work with startups. The Women Business Center was working with startups. The cities and counties was working with startups. So MBDA on the national level decided to move us to a different level because someone needed to work with growth businesses so that we could get to where the real dollars are. And to get there, we needed to go to manufacturing, we needed to go to exporting, etc. And they considered it community businesses. And community businesses was one level. Then there was creation of wealth businesses. That was another level. So MBDA moved us to the creation of wealth. Now, I don't know whether any wealth is being created, but that in the end is our long goal. And right now it's a matter of how do we sustain? How do we move the business from one level to the next? So when you really look at it, everybody has a space. It's a matter of strengthening yourself. And you can't be a business knowing nothing. What you are is just there, present. I tell them all the time, you can't ask to kick you because they're going to kick you. So I'm suggesting that we go back and really visit our businesses to see, are you ready to be in business? There's a tool SBA has out there. Are you ready to be in business? You can't be putting money in the pocket and yet say, I don't have any finances. So there's some things that we are going to have to do as businesses, small business, black business, other business, to be ready to do business. Then we, those business professionals who help businesses, can assess their business, including their financial statements, and begin to work with them to grow the business and identify what training is needed.
Ms. Sumpter, we have a question from one of our viewers. They want to know, should the minority business owners that you mentioned pay for this, like in some of the other states?
The majority of my clients pay. If I'm working with a business who's making 10 million even, it's a return on their investment, and they'll have to decide of continuing payment. And we have some businesses that we've worked with over 20 years, and that's because I think they'll tell you there's a return on their investment. If we don't give them a return, I want them to go somewhere else. We only want to work with those that we can have an impact, that they can see the result, etc. So yes, the clients do pay. Now, at the same time, you can go to the SBDC at no cost. You can go to the Women Business Center. You can go to the city. You can go to the counties. I tell them, it's a grocery store. After you finish Food Lion, buy loads, etc., then call me. I'm ready because I'm the fresh market.
Thank you. That's Dianne Sumpter. She's founder and CEO of DESA Incorporated. I'm Trey Taylor. You are watching the 2021 South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus Minority Business Forecast. We are in the small business panel. We're talking to Raquel Richardson Thomas, owner of the Golden Restaurant, also Courtney Young, CEO of ForeSight Communications, Dianne Sumpter, CEO and founder of DESA. Next to her is Representative Ivory Thigpen, District 79 in Richland County. And we've got Lasenta Ellis back with us. She's CEO of LLE Construction Group. Lasenta, since we lost you in the middle of your conversation, I don't know if you want to continue to make your point. Don't even know if you remember what the point was you were making.
Well, yeah, thank you, Trey. No, I was just you asked me, I guess, what's the climate for small businesses, and I think Ms. Sumpter, Raquel, and Courtney pretty much hit it dead on. A lot of small businesses we're struggling, and COVID just made it just a tad bit harder to access capital. But one thing that we learned coming out of that is that we have to have those banking relationships, and we have to have accountability with our financials and our books, and make sure that we have those in order so that we can apply for like the PPP and even the second round. So I think they covered a lot of what small business owners just have been struggling with. There are resources out here, and we just have to go and get the assistance that we need. And I totally agree with what they've said so far.
Well, we have a question. Are smaller banks able to help minority-owned businesses work through the loans, the process of the PPP loans? The other question was, there are barbers that qualify for these loans, but are having a hard time filling out the paperwork, similar to what you said, Courtney, not having their paperwork in order. So are smaller banks able to help better than some of the Wells Fargo's, First Citizens, Bank of America's?
Well, I guess I'm gonna comment on it. I won't say, well, small business, as long as they're able to do the PPP, because all banks were not assisting with the PPP, they are able. Like, we use First Horizon, and they sat with me and walked me through the process. But I will say too, I have a CPA who also helped me with the second round of the PPP, and knowing what information was needed and making sure that I had all the information. Go ahead.
Can I chime in on that too?
Yes, ma'am.
First and foremost, the PPP has just been extended by 2 months. So instead of March 31st, May is now, it's open until May. The reason it was opened for the further time is because there was many who had not gotten in, and many of the bank's portals has ceased. But I would suggest to any business, get you a banking relationship, not a bank teller. So that when you call them, they do one thing, that's respond. Because if you're looking for payroll, you don't need to get them next week. You need to get them now. But at the same time, Optus Bank has been phenomenal. And we have partnered with them. And I have a person at my office who you can call and help walk them through it. Now, they must push the button. And the rules change. For those who have a Schedule C line, who's an LLC, for Schedule C, line 31 was what was. Now it's line 7. It's gone back to revenue. So many of those who are not eligible. Now, for those who are PP2, you have to have 25% reduction on any quarter. And we've been very, very successful. And Optus Bank has been a Trojan in doing it. But if you still have someone who needs to get PPP, if they'll call me, I will absolutely help them find, not only help them get it done, but find them somebody to process it, because we now have until May 31st.
Yeah. Can you give your contact information, Dianne, for people who may want to contact you?
Well, everybody else seems to have it. It's 803-730-6466. Now, I won't be doing it, but I'll get them to the person. But it's 803-730-6466. We don't want anyone to not get PPP because they don't have access. Now, for the first round, they need the 2019 tax return if they didn't get it. And then for the second round, it's based on quarter reduction of 25%.
Reverend Representative Thigpen, I want to get you in here for a minute. District 79, Richland County, as a small business owner yourself and state representative, does there need to be a disparity study in South Carolina? So several other places have had it.
I definitely agree that there needs to be one. The reality of it is that there are disparities. I am a business owner in several senses, really a pastor of a church, a nonprofit, the headmaster of a child care development center, as well as the owner of a chiropractic clinic and wellness center. Those are three different types of businesses, unique each, but all still struggling and having difficulties during this time. And to be quite honest, even before this time, African American and minority businesses are challenged to access capital. I won't belabor us with the horror story of my wonderful and well-detailed business plan that got rejected by so many banks. But what I will say to the illustrious Miss Dianne Sumpter's points, as she has made so many drop the mic moments, it's really about relationships that you have with the bank, and you have to build relationships, and you also have to leverage relationships. We were able in all three businesses to get PPP and in some instances economic injury money, both first and second rounds. But it really boiled down to the relationship with the bank. We applied to probably about 4 different banks. And, I'm exaggerating now, but they wanted our firstborn and a blood sample. And the process was very, very closed window. And it seemed as though it was people knew when to and how to get there and get to the front of the line. And, luckily, we were blessed to have a relationship with a small credit union that was able to really walk us along the process and facilitate it for us. And really what everyone has said, that it's really about relationships. It's really about having your books in order, because you can have the best of relationships, but if you don't have your books in order, you're not going to get access, because nobody's going to give you money that they think that's going to ultimately cause problems for them, or you're going to have problems repaying. So I know there are a lot of people who are what I would call entrepreneurs or self-employed, probably is a better word, but aren't necessarily where they need to be on having their books in order, as well as having the information that they need to access of these various sources and resources. I won't even pretend to be as well versed as some of the others who have mentioned, the intricate details about, what line and where you need to go and what percentage you need to have. But there are people out there who know it. So if you are in a situation like myself, and you cannot be the master of all things, you need to connect yourself with someone that can indeed and is knowledgeable about how you complete these processes and access this. And so I want to say this one last thing, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Taylor. I thought Ms. Sumpter made an excellent point about, and it's something that I've actually brought up with the South Carolina Commission on Minority Affairs, is that so many times we focus on the incubators and the startup businesses, but there are so many businesses that have already opened their doors, that have already began to do business, that need this assistance. And so one of the questions that I frequently ask is how are we identifying those businesses in the community? What bridges are we building so that current businesses that employ and do commerce and bring economic activity into our communities, how are they being helped and assisted to become stronger business? Because it's not just about starting business, it's about making strong businesses in our community. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Representative Ivory Thigpen, District 79. We have got about 10 or so more minutes. I tell you, time flies when you're talking about important issues. And I do want to ask you all some things that you can suggest that right now minority business owners need to do: programs, events, activities, resources. But before that, I want to ask you, each of you that are small business owners, and Lasenta, I'd like to start with you. What challenges have you faced, and how have you overcome them, so that perhaps that can be some great advice for another small or minority business owner?
Okay, thanks, Trey. So some of the challenges that I initially faced, of course, has been, access to capital. When you start your business, you have the resource. I had the resources to open the office, but a lot of times we have to fund we have to fund our project. So that was the biggest challenge for me coming off of unemployment and starting my business, was just having the resources available to grow my business. And then the other thing I think is building my capabilities. So as a small business owner, when I first started, I just couldn't hire the staff right off the bat to be help for me in the beginning. So I noticed, even as my business began to grow, and once it hit a certain mark, I need a great team around me, not just my subcontractors, but in-house. So building the capacity and our capabilities require me, to build my team. And Trey, I would just want to touch real quick on the disparity study that you asked earlier. I truly believe that we need disparity studies because we need to see in our city, our county and state procurement, even federal government, we really need to see where are minorities getting the business and what type of participation are these different entities, tracking to make sure that contracting opportunities are available for small women and minority contractors. So just to answer your question, absolutely, we need a disparity study completed. I think the city of Columbia just had an RFP out to actually complete a disparity study so that we can establish more programs that allow more contracting opportunities for our small women and minority contractors. Thank you, Trey.
Thank you, Lasenta. Raquel, challenges and how you've overcome them so that someone else can perhaps glean from your experience?
Well, we definitely need a disparity study. I couldn't be more in agreement with Lasenta. And it's different for different businesses. Understand that. I own a restaurant and it operates a lot different than everybody else's business on the panel today. So it depends on industry. Industry is huge when it comes to research and data and resources for that matter. Challenges for me, and I'll start from more of a political standpoint. Hiring is very difficult here. Hiring staff that show up to work on time. I think we have a lot of people looking for jobs, but more people looking for a paycheck versus a job. So hiring has been an uphill battle overall during my time operating a business here in South Carolina. I also say a challenge can sometimes be the lack of support in your own community. We oftentimes spend more dollars in other people's community than we do in our own. And this is like something that a lot of us may not want to touch, but we need to talk about it more because we cripple ourselves. We don't have enough support from our own people in our own communities where we spend a mass amount of dollars in other people's communities. So that's a huge issue across the board in the African American community alone. And then again, not as political, but I think we have to have the difficult conversations to be better. We often operate in a crab mentality amongst ourselves. So we have to do a better job of working together. We have to do a better job of supporting each other and coming together as one. We are a mighty fist if we work together, but we struggle when we work individually. But the key, I think, Trey, to all the challenges I just mentioned is building your all-star team. Everything circles back to the team, the people that sit to the left of you, the right of you. You have to build an all-star team to be successful, not just in this market, but in any market.
Yeah. Thank you, Raquel. Courtney, was there one thing that you had to overcome that you can share that you were able to give some really great advice about?
I think building a community around you, just to further Raquel's point, early in my business, and for a long time, it was just me. It was me figuring out, me coming up with ideas, me pitching to clients, me managing the work. And even as I hired people and my team has grown, and I'm grateful for a quality team of individuals that I work with, building a community around me that could support telling me yes and no when I needed no's and I was going too far, and giving me advice in ways that would help guide me on the path the vision I saw in the path I could go. But one of the things that I will always credit to being a game changer in my business was, well, two things. One, my personal SWOT. Anybody that knows me knows I believe in a SWOT analysis: your strength, your weaknesses, opportunities and threats. I had to check myself. What was going to work, what wasn't going to work, who was for me, who was against me, all of those things.
That's good.
And the next thing was getting certified. We didn't have a chance to talk about that much, but businesses have to, numbers count. It's why disparity studies are important. It's why all of these minority business communities and organizations exist, it's because the numbers matter. So people need to get certified. If you are a minority business owner, it doesn't always mean you need to be just DBE or just MBE or just women-owned small business, but find one. Get into a community of people, because that's where you'll begin to also develop a network that can keep supporting you as you're going through this process. When you're missing it, they're hearing it and they're sharing it. And it doesn't always mean it's going to get you that particular contract, but it'll help build that network. And so those were game changers for me.
Yeah, great advice. Those are great takeaways, because you've got to know who you are, like you said, what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you can do, what you can't do. But if you don't know, you got to have somebody around you who can tell you.
Yeah. So needs to balance.
Yeah, briefly, tell us a little bit about ForeSight Communications, what you do.
So at ForeSight, we are in the business of marketing and public relations, and we do public outreach. So we do public outreach for cities, counties, states. We do it for federal projects as well. We spend a lot of time in the transportation arena. We're into healthcare. So we work with these agencies to get the word out. So I hear you, Raquel. I hear you very well on getting the word out, because it's a challenge, but we work with them to get the word out about what they're doing. And so that's the majority of what we do in those spaces.
Great.
And sometimes making sure they know they need a budget to do it, because they don't always commit to the outreach part as much as they do the technical assistance. So
right. That's Courtney Young, CEO of ForeSight Communications. Dianne Sumpter, founder and CEO of DESA. What programs, events, activities you suggest minority business participate in? What do minority businesses have to do, Ms. Sumpter?
I want to switch a little bit. I think our big issue is getting opportunities. Yes, we need training, but what we need is opportunities. And if we look at what the legislative body can do, we can assure that the state dollars, the federal dollars, the municipality dollars, we have some access to those. Then if we get those dollars, we'll be able to go to the restaurants and other places. So I really want us to think about, how do we go about increasing and assuring money is being spent every day? But we look at our state and municipal, it's going out of state. So if you must send our money away, at least insist that they include us. So that's sort of mine. And when you talk about a challenge, those are opportunities. It's opportunities for the legislators to step to the plate and see that the state do another disparity study. There were 3 disparity studies done 20 years ago. I'm so fortunate and so happy that the city is doing another one, but the county hasn't, and the state had the gall for the SCDOT to decide that they weren't going to even accept it because they didn't send it to their board. And why we need a disparity study? Because Justice O'Connor said after the Adirondack Act that was the only way to do goals, etc. So I'm pleading with Representative Thigpen. Look at what we really need. Do we need training? Yes, but we need business.
Right. Well, to your point, thank you, Ms. Sumpter. And I was going to ask Representative Thigpen, but Dianne Sumpter asked the question, Representative Thigpen. So what can you all do up at the big house, at the State House? What can you do? Look, and I said this in one of the last panels, in the words of the great Janet Jackson, what have you done for us lately? And what can you do for small minority and women-owned businesses? What can you all do to make sure, as Ms. Sumpter said, that folks are getting these dollars back?
Well, I think,
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, I think part of it is exactly what we're doing right now, having, such women as these and business owners such as these raise awareness and begin to put a spotlight on them as far as what they're doing. Because one of the things you have to realize, it is political pressure. Awareness is really what changes the temperature. One of the things that I want to bring quickly to our attention, that even though the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus may be the largest, in the country, we still are a vast minority in the legislative body. So then how do we put the pressure on the rest of the body to act on what we know is urgent and a major issue? One small step is a study, but we can't stop at a study. because we know the study is just highlighting or bringing awareness to what the problem is. Then we have to insist upon there be action taken, because to have diversity is one thing, but if there's not inclusion, if there's not access to opportunity, it doesn't make a difference. So I think the thing that we failed to do is be intentional. I mean, we can't just simply say we put it out there, you get it if you want it, you get to it if you can. I think we have to be intentional about the inclusion and the opportunities that we provide and ensure take place for our minority contractors, for minority businesses. So definitely it is an uphill battle, but I don't want to underestimate or under promote what we're doing here, because I do think, and I know people who have been listened in have been helped by this panel. And we got to do our part. I think part of it begins with what Ms. Thomas highlighted on, because what she talked about, community and crab-like mentality and supporting one another, is not unique to the restaurant business. It happens amongst legislators, that we have to stand as one. We have to operate with collective power, because that's the only way we really can bargain. That's the only way we really can address issues, because there are so many fights that sometimes we just have to pick a few and not take them all on. And we have to make sure that we have measurable outcomes and benchmarks for what we're trying to do. We can't just simply shoot in the dark. So I'm overly analytical, so I love to be data driven. I think we need studies, and not just simply studies that, because sometimes what happens, let me say this and then I'll close. Sometimes we do studies and then they become paperweights and bookshelf.
And I was going to say that.
And we take the information and we do nothing with it. It almost as if the studies sometimes are pacifiers. We put committees together and we put projects together just simply to quiet the people so that we can, and I say we, because I'm speaking collectively for the legislative body, although I'm not the powers that be that pull the levers. But we do that just to quiet down the people, but we can't be quiet. And that's why I call and bring it all the way back to, we got to have and raise such a fuss, right, that we don't let it die. And then that gives us the opportunity to really put pressure to say, hey, no, you just can't push this in the corner or do a study and forget about it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was going to make that point too, Representative Thigpen. It's one thing, to Ms. Sumpter's point, to have a study. It's another thing to do something about the study once you have the study, because I'm sure there are all kinds of studies going on and nothing has happened from that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your taking this time and sharing your thoughts. And I do hope that this is part of a bigger conversation that needs to happen, because and with all due respect, Representative Thigpen, you all are our representatives. You're our senators. You're the people that are supposed to be our advocates. And there are some great things happening, but still so much more has to happen. And it has to be the communication. Small business owners have to feel comfortable enough and know who their representatives are to communicate with them, tell them what their needs are, and then in turn, you all need to let us know what can be done, and make sure, like Ms. Sumpter says, that money is coming into the Black and Brown communities. Thank you all so much again for joining us. Representative Ivory Thigpen, District 79, Richland County. Also, Lewis-Ellis, CEO of LLE Construction Group. And Raquel Richardson Thomas, owner of the Golden Restaurant. Courtney Young, with CEO of ForeSight Communications. And Queen Dianne Sumpter, founder and CEO of DESA Incorporated. Thank you all so much for joining us today for the 2021 South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus Minority Business Forecast. Thank you also for watching. Please continue to post and share this information out, because this is such an important conversation, such great tips, such great information that we know you need to hear, and someone else does too. Coming up next, USNSC economics and what it means for minority business. That's our next and final panel this afternoon as we continue with the Minority Business Forecast from the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus. I'm Trey Taylor. Thank you all again.
The South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus was founded in 1975 with the mission to improve the quality of life for Black and minority communities in South Carolina. Since its founding under the leadership of Judge Ernest Finney Jr., the caucus has been the catalyst behind significant legislative action and policy changes in South Carolina that brought efforts of justice and fairness for all South Carolinians. Caucus efforts have led to state statute requiring consideration of minority businesses in the process of awarding state contracts, the creation of the Governor's Office for Small and Minority Businesses, the South Carolina Commission of Minority Affairs, and the state's Human Affairs Commission. The caucus is currently comprised of 45 members, including 12 state senators and 33 members of the South Carolina House of Representatives. In January 2021, State Representative Patricia Hennigan assumed the role of chair of the caucus, marking the third woman to be elected to lead the historic organization. Chair Hennigan has announced an active and comprehensive plan for the caucus that centers on increasing overall exposure and opportunities for minority communities across South Carolina. The South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus remains committed to its founding motto, "Like limbs, we reach toward the sun, but feed from a common root." The caucus remains readily available to serve the citizens of South Carolina, continuously fighting for justice and fairness.
Good morning to the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus. I bring you greetings from the R.C. Wilson Group and the Wilson family. I've been blessed to have been able to work with the caucus for over 25 years, working to help to improve the quality of life of families in our communities. The 2021 Minority Business Forecast proves to continue that legacy under the leadership of Chairwoman Pat Hennigan. I am excited and I'm looking forward to being enriched by the panelists, the panel, and the moderator. Good luck. God bless you. And I am excited to be a part of this. Thank you.
The Carolina Panorama has been the news and information source for the African American community in South Carolina since 1986. Founded by Nathaniel Abraham Sr., the publication is now in its second generation and being managed by Nathaniel Abraham Jr. Like and follow the Panorama on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and pick up your copy of the Carolina Panorama every Thursday. Positive news for a positive community. The Carolina Panorama.
Our story is we were live streaming way before it was popular. We're trying to get event planners to live stream their events, but they were like, nah, people won't show up. Well, good thing for us, COVID happened, and these same people came showing up with masks saying, hey, what was that you said about live streaming? God's blessed us to be able to help the government and political campaigns and shows and many other organizations get their messages out. Very important information, especially in this pandemic. We'd love to help your business out also at www.freethinkersradio.com.
Hello again, 2021 Minority Business Forecast participants. We hope that you enjoyed this event and were able to take some useful information back to your business and community. Remember that the members of the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus are always here to assist you, and you can contact us anytime. I suggest the caucus host this event because I believe we must do more to help our Black and minority communities, and you can set the date that the Minority Business Forecast will be back next year. I thank you again for participating. God bless you, your business, your families, our great state, and our great country. Until the next time, goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you for joining us for the 2021 South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus Minority Business Forecast. Continue to tag, post, and share this informative session. And please continue to comment. Your questions will be reviewed and addressed at a later date. For more information on today's Minority Business Forecast or the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus, contact Devin Owens at dowens.sclbc@gmail.com. Please like and follow the caucus on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. On behalf of Madam Chair Representative Patricia Hennigan and the entire SCLBC, thank you again. God bless. And remember, Black business women business, minority business. Your business matters to the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus.